My people, it is a very painful thing to remember Asaba Massacre. Asaba Massacre, seeking healing. A lot of Nigerians don't know what happened. 7th October 1967, a lot of atrocities happened in the land of Asaba. Nigerian soldiers committed a lot of atrocities.
Anya mohona anya bianage say non the meeties. That is goodbye till we meet no more.
During Biafra War, Nigerian soldiers gathered all the male child and adults in Asaba and massacred them all. They killed many people. They killed both adults, all the male child for inside Asaba.
1970. Anya biaka ije zutande aya Nigeria. Bia bulegu. Anya mara no bo a game of death ka iba n'imia.
In remembrance of Asaba Massacre, on the 7th October 2022, we be sit at home in entire Biafra land. On that day, it is expected that all schools, all markets, all churches, all banks will shut down for the remembrance of Asaba Massacre. Anybody where hear my voice, making talk to him brother, making talk to his sister, making one in children, making one everybody, where they close to them. This order is coming from Biafra spokesperson Simon Epa. Asina nti adahari he ebubisi ise soloya intiminsi. Any ear, when they hear word, as they cut head, and so they go cut ear, full
They open fire. Papa, where will you go? Machine gun, Gahube our people. And they were slaughtered in thousands.
Welcome, my amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are joining from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much, and remember.
Obiageli Ezekwesili joins us live here in our Abuja studio. Many thanks for having you. I probably will say Happy Independence and probably Happy New Year to you. I have not seen you this year.
Yes, you haven't seen me.
Good to see you.
But it's lovely to see you, Shem. I know you've been trying to get into the studio for quite a long time.
Now that we have you.
Yes.
Let's get you to speak about Nigeria.
Right.
You know so much about this country. What is your thought on a day like this when Nigeria celebrates, well, it's the second day of the Independence Day celebration, but we are still in the mood. What are your thoughts about this nation?
You know, it's amazing how Nigeria offers you contrasts, right? So the contrast in this particular case, as you can see clearly, it's evident. Is on the one hand, we're on the cusp of something that's clearly different from what we've seen before, an activation of citizens' participation in our electoral process. So our democracy is getting the benefit of active citizenship. That's a great one. And then on the other hand, this feeling that perhaps also in some way drives this activation, this sense that of our 62 years haven't quite produced the extent of important developmental outcomes that contemporaries of Nigeria have managed to produce in very far-flung places around the world, especially even in countries that have similar history as ourselves. So you've got this sense of disappointment that we haven't done as well as we could have done, and yet lying side by side it now in this moment that we celebrate our 62nd anniversary of the independence, a sense that there is some awakening that's going on. And so hope, fail it not. And it doesn't make you ashamed, right?
So when I said earlier that Nigeria is a nation flowing with milk and honey, I'm speaking with a deep understanding of potentials, not what the obtainable, not what we are obtaining or what we see right now. So I'm speaking in terms of potentials. if there is one thing that has held this country back from fulfilling its aspiration and dreams of the forefathers, or the founding fathers, what do you think that could be?
I think everybody that you've interviewed on your show, no matter how many technical reasons they provide, at the summation, they end up saying leadership is our problem. I mean, it's unbelievable. For decades after decades, we would analyze the pitiful condition of our country, and you would see people come to conclusion, whether they are discussing health sector, or they are discussing education, or they are discussing infrastructure, or they are discussing basic governance. People end up, after all the technical things have been said, they then end up and say, leadership is our greatest problem. You know, why is that so? It is so because leadership, frankly, is that organic process that brings all the potentials you possibly have and the possibilities that you have, that coherence that is needed in order to champion a cause toward a clear destination. If you don't have it, you are going to be in the kind of situation we have. So you have all the factors that could lead to growth. Yet there is no coherent direction of the energies that are possible. And so what you end up with would be pitiful outcomes. So I often say to people that, you know, the importance of this concept of leadership is established through empirical analysis that shows more and more that the absence of good governance is the biggest barrier that you can have to development. It's the biggest barrier you can have to growth. The absence of good governance, you know, it really is not just the absence of systems and procedures and structures and institutions. It is most importantly the absence of that human capability to lead, to direct, to organize, to mobilize, to inspire, and to make people aspire towards something better than their current state.
Would you say you're a bit disappointed at the performance of the government of the day? Or how would you describe their performance?
I'm surprised you're asking me this question. I think I was one of the Nigerians that stayed persistent to the matter of demanding for good governance in this country. I demanded for good governance even in the government I worked in, because in the government I worked in, I was known as Madam Due Process, remember? And I was not liked. I was not liked by the people in that government that I worked in, because of this demand that we must govern well. Because if we don't govern well, then the opportunities that are necessary to inspire social and economic mobility of those outside of the privilege that we have had will not come. It will not come to pass. So we needed good governance even at the time that I was in government. And so in fact, in the economic team, I was the subcommittee or subtask team leader of the administration's good governance, accountability, transparency, economic governance aspect. So the reason that I say this is that I stayed consistent with that. I demanding good governance.
And you never kept quiet.
And I never kept quiet.
When you and your friends were on the street demanding the release of the Chibok girls, it got a global reckoning, and a lot of people, and it awakened some kind of sensibilities in a lot of people across the world of how much pain it is to take innocent children out of their schools, away from the parents, and some of them I in fact just released a few weeks ago. But the question here is that you're one of those who have demanded good governance, and you stayed committed to it. You've tried your best to see that you can convince Nigerians to see how good governance can be achieved. I remember that you were called as the speaker to the APC retreat in 2014 or 2015. Now you said, I hope you guys know what you are up against. I mean, by calling me into this event.
Yes.
And some of those things that you said, looking back 7 years later, What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, just ask people to go to your own website and download the speech and compare it with what we see on, in the country. I mean, the truth is that the summary of that speech was essentially saying that, the idea that all you need to do is focus on vacuous statements of a political set of people who have a different set of acronyms in order to get development is a ruse. That's not reality. So I was essentially saying, if you're going to be effective in governance, and which is, for example, when I remember the Denver, I think it was the Denver primaries of Obama, when Obama became, I was one of those who was at one of the sessions speaking concerning the matter of the administration, should he win the ticket, the issues around development. So it wasn't unusual for me to have been invited. In fact, when I was invited, I said to them, are you sure that you're actually inviting me to come speak to a group of politicians in Nigeria? They said yes. I said, no. Go check that you're really inviting me. And so they invited me. And I had to say with candor, the issues. I said to them that Nigeria's story, if you look at it from an empirical analysis perspective, our story has not been the story of just, the political party. It's been the fact that we have actually lacked the kind of leadership that in one person and persons, in other words, our leadership class, our political class, we've not seen an amalgam of people with the requisite skills of leadership. Skills of leadership they're not just ad hoc. They are not things that happen by virtue of somebody thinking I could be a leader. So those attributes of competence, of character, of capacity, there is a deliberateness behind it that then enables people to mobilize the kind of action that is necessary to deliver on.
If you look at the 18 presidential candidates on the bill this time around, would you say there are maybe one or two people that you think possess this kind of character or traits?
I do think that, regardless of what parameter you use, that at least we might find maybe up to 3 people who you could say there are certain parts of the boxes that they tick. But this is what we're served, right? We're served badly as a country in terms of our political class, which is part of why I'm excited that young people are entering into that space, that women are entering into that space. It gives me enormous joy. But, somebody says to you, between a cast of possible presidents that include the 3 forerunners that we currently have, a possible president Tinubu, a possible president Atiku, a possible president Obi. Do you need anybody to tell you where you would be going? I mean, for goodness sake, it would be an Obi. Because regardless of the fact that he comes from that particular political class that we still are talking about, he still at least represents many shades better than the other 2 top candidates. So I believe that the momentum that we're driving through in the country at this time is a momentum that's sort of saying, let's really evaluate who will be our leader. But I think that the most significant thing for me is really that a society must come to the place where they finally say, we want to vote for ourselves.
Have you gotten to that point? I mean, you look at the numbers of the young people, and you've mentioned the young people 3 times since you started speaking in the last few minutes. And for those who have seen how the young people have related with elections in the past, will tell you that they are very docile. The records and the numbers say as much that young people have not been serious about coming out on election day. Will 2023 be any different from what you've seen so far?
You know, I have been very close to young people all my life, you know, because I actually was a beneficiary of elders who took interest in my life, you know. So when you look at the likes of Justice Kayode Esho, he was a mentor. Our dear Mr. Gamaliel Onosode was a mentor. You know, I've been mentored by incredible people. So you can imagine how young I was then. They gave me a chance to sit with me, share wisdom with me. I am not disdainful of young people in the way that sometimes I hear people speak. There's so much that's been against the young in our society. So much has been against them. And so sometimes when you see some of the behaviors that we don't like, it pains me. I don't like it also, but I'm able to say I understand where that's coming from. Put that aside and now focus on what happened October 2020. The young people actually mustered the courage and they said, you know what? We're tired. We really are tired. You need to listen to us. And they made a statement, but were they listened to? They were not listened to. And it was so characterized, it was mischaracterized as something other than what the young were saying. Frankly speaking, I just sometimes imagine how differently this society, this governance process would be in our country if those in leadership would listen.
I dare to ask you tonight that could there be an imminent threat on the regular, traditional political class in this country?
I've prayed for that. I have to tell you, I am not, you know, I am so excited. You remember that as part of that whole process of getting our society to understand that in a democracy, you cannot, as the citizens, be on the periphery of it and then expect something valuable to happen. It wouldn't happen. And that's because, you know, as I went on after I ran for president, I spent time in Berlin and I was doing a research to understand why our politics, you know, is constantly failing us, not just in Nigeria, but across the continent. And one thing became clear in my analysis, that what we have is a monopoly democracy. We have monopoly democracies because the political class act like monopolies. They totally occupy the entire space of what I call the triangular pillars of democracy. And then the citizens are on the periphery. The regulators of the political process are also in the pocket of the political class. So the supply side is dominant. And therefore they exercise the authority of the monopolies, who has no incentive to give you anything of value. Everything profit making is totally high, you know, high tension, high level for the monopolist. And so in our democracy, that's what we have had. However, I did say in that research that the way to get the citizens to the space that they should occupy in democracy would be to challenge and contest all the barriers that stand in the way of their involvement. And so for the middle class, coming to the place where they realize that we are cooked. You know, the middle class suddenly realized that, hey, God, we can't look away. That's why you're saying, by the definition of middle class today, the person who has been able to acquire a university education is literate enough to function in that space. But of course, you know, the joblessness doesn't enable them function. So they come to a place of awareness where they suddenly say, wait a minute, we have the power. And so it's consistent with what I coined, that the office of the citizen is the most powerful office in the land.
If the citizens
realize it. So now they are realizing it and they are activated. And some people are actually mocking There are people who are mocking this whole development. And I love the fact that
maybe it does not, because it has not really happened in an electoral cycle.
Well,
and that is why, for those who think the norm might play back, might play again, people have said money and always play a major role in our politics.
Yes.
People trade votes,
yes.
buy and sell.
Yes.
Poverty is at the heart of the matter. And that, if that factor is still there in 2023, you cannot take away the fact that people will be offered 5,000 naira, 4,000 naira for their vote, and it will still be a case of the highest bidder who gets the day. So what are your views on the issue of the money politics and the danger it portends for 2023 election?
It is a legitimate, counterpoint to the what do you call it, the enthusiasm, the kind of elation that we feel at current developments. So we mustn't in any way sort of say that doesn't matter. It does matter, because there is still a segment of the electorate that their productivity is so low and they've been so debased by the situation of the country. So for them, it is rational to get their 1,000 and to turn their vote for whoever gave them the 1,000. So we would still have that. But the issue that you have to put now into your model, through which you're looking analytically at what the possibilities are, is to be data driven. And so you look at the data around, young people with education, okay, or young people still in the educational process who are now sort of saying, we're going to participate in this and we're going to drive it and we're going to make sure we stay with it. Now, that decision that they have made to not look away like they used to. In the past, a democracy was a democracy of the people at the low income bracket. Now you're saying the people, the middle class, I used to say, middle class acted irresponsibly in our political space. But today you're seeing them sort of saying, no, we're no longer going to do that. When you look at the data on them, the ones that are self-organizing, have you seen that? So you don't have a situation where a political party is distributing some prebends to people and saying, vote for us. And yet the citizens are self-organizing. And it's an intergenerational thing that we're saying. So there are some of the oldies who have decided, I'm done with Nigeria, and they're no longer participating, but they are weakened. So you can't dismiss this phenomenon. What is important for this phenomenon is for it to be better organized. It just needs to be strategic in its approach, because I fear that the existing system is going to find a way of voter suppression, or of doing something that will be inimical to the process. So you must be anticipatory and preemptive so that you can take the kind of actions that would counter any attempt to stay entrenched with the status quo.
I know the academic and the activism side of you. I know the governance side of you. But I also know that you have the spiritual side of you and the role you play in the church as a pastor.
Especially as a pastor's wife. I always make sure that people...
for people like us, we know that a pastor's wife is also equally a pastor.
Yes, I am. I actually am.
So I will be asking you to look at a crystal ball.
No, I'm going to look at the biblical pages. I don't like crystal balls.
But I know that either we like it or not, religion and ethnicity have played a major role. I'd like you to comment briefly on that before I'd like you to look at what the future and give your own permutation of what could happen. Briefly, do you see religion and perhaps ethnicity? Because if you look at the gamut of or the list of those who are running for office, you discover that there is no alignment in terms of unison a political class now on one way, one ethnic group running for the office. You have them across the ethnic lines. So it means that there will be some kind of voices here and there, and people might vote according to how they feel ethnic-wise. Do you see religion and ethnicity playing a major role? Briefly.
So, we are a diverse society. We know that it is important to manage our diversity efficiently, effectively. and in a way that is equitable. Now, I think that there is a segment of this population that looks at what APC and PDP did, and they find it utterly contemptible. First, in the case of APC, how could you possibly be fielding Muslim candidates in a society that has always found a way to ensure the balance? Even in the time of the military, they were smart to always find, you know, the northern head of state would find a deputy that would be a Christian, right, and from the south. Right, and then you come as democracy, and you're not even sensitive to that. That shows a complete. It's like being contemptible of a segment of your population. That is not right. And then you look at the PDP. This is a party that always said that it tries to be built around inclusion. And so it always sort of made it possible for the rotational principle to support the emergence of their candidate. And suddenly, a candidate emerges who has been running as candidate of that party many other times. And, you know, why would that happen? When you know that clearly the time of the people that are from the southeast, as you designed it to be, is now. And you just upstage that. And yet, you have the arrogance to be saying to them that they have no reason to complain, because this is the season of character, competence, and capacity. My goodness, that is sophistry. Because if you're going to use character, competence, and capacity, then many of them don't qualify to be the ones saying we should be the ones running. They should, within the southeast, they could have found the people with the character, competence, and capacity. And by the way, Mr. Obi, who is now the candidate of Labour Party, was in your party. So if you really needed character, competence, and capacity in a way that is just, you know, that is just, in a way that is equitable, in a way that is inclusive, in your PDP, you could have made Peter Obi become your candidate. So when you look at all of this, you now see that there are many segments of our society that are vexed. And before people begin to say, oh, this is an Igbo people thing, it's not true. I have so many people who are people from the north, people who are Muslims, people from the south who are Muslims, who simply say that it is not proper that the two dominant parties acted the way they did. So a lot of that is also fueling the kind of support that Peter Obi is receiving.
Let's wrap up quickly, and perhaps 30 seconds. This is the part where you have to look into the future, and I'll glean from your experience in government and perhaps in politics also. You've learned your lesson, and you've seen how things could go in politics. How do you think the 2023 election will pan out? Just in 30 seconds.
30 seconds. I'm done. Anyway, so two things are possible, two possible outcomes. That this extant political class, in their ruthlessness, simply say we're not going anywhere. And so they would do anything, including take the nation down in order to maintain the status quo. All right? That's a possible outcome, but it's an outcome that we can mitigate against by the collective effort of citizens across this land. And then the other outcome is the outcome where basically the citizens that are currently self-organizing, self-organize even more strategically and understand that everybody should be at a polling booth with their PVC ready to vote. And not just vote, but that they would stay there and be the guardian angels of the vote of citizens, right? But especially, I think that, you know, just making sure that the credible process that the INEC has promised is what we get. The INEC, as the regulator of the political system, has to be above board. I mean, totally above board, beyond reproach. Anything that is contrary will not be welcomed by the citizens.
Dr. Obi is a question. It's always a pleasure. A 2-hour conversation with you cannot be enough to take out those things you brought from Germany and the rest of it. Thank you so much. It's good to see you again.
So lovely to see you.
Thank you so much indeed. I
God
appreciate
bless you.
it.
Yeah. Happy Independence.
Yes, same to you. Thank you so much. We'll take a break, everyone. And when we return, the Obida.
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We will kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you and remember this. Bye-bye. See you again.